this was dealt with quickly and efficiently, like I said, it would never have got to this stage, and the relationship between myself and Ashley Cole wouldn't be where it is now, and my relationship with John Terry may not be where it is now either.
Chelsea captain John Terry has been handed a 4-game ban and fined £220,000 by the FA following a clash with QPR defender Anton Ferdinand last year.
I tried to make contact with Anton that evening after the game. I tried to make contact with Rio and their agent after the game, and I basically got shut down instantly.
Elsewhere in the Premier League, Queen's Park Rangers meets Chelsea, but no handshake between Anton Ferdinand and John Terry. And Anton Ferdinand appears also to snub Ashley Cole further down the Chelsea lineup.
And since then, I've tried to speak to Rio, who doesn't want to talk to me at all. I've seen him on the beach in Dubai and refused to speak to me. And there's not much more I can do.
Today, we're opening up a really difficult one, actually. A highly charged file. It explores what many, maybe universally hailed, as the greatest central defensive partnership in English football history. John Terry and Rio Ferdinand. For nearly a decade, I mean, they were the absolute foundation, weren't they? That unshakable core of England's golden generation. But this story, it isn't really about shared glory. It's more of a profound human tragedy, isn't it? Centered on one single, absolutely catastrophic incident back in 2011. An incident that turned these two professional colleagues, maybe not friends, but colleagues, into bitter, lifelong rivals. Okay, so to set the stage properly, we really have to understand the sheer stature of these two guys before the incident. I mean, before everything changed. They weren't just good defenders. They were genuinely seen as two of the very best center backs anywhere in the world. And the football journalist Henry Winter, he put it really well looking back. He wrote, "The Terry-Ferdinand partnership was always an uneasy marriage of necessity. Once trust was broken, there was no way back." So we're going to trace that moment, that absolute fracture, and everything that followed. Right, let's start by looking at their careers, because they ran almost in parallel, but were fiercely competitive. By 2010, John Terry and Rio Ferdinand, they were the standard, the benchmark for defending globally. But their styles, their loyalties, couldn't have been more different. So first you've got John Terry at Chelsea. He wasn't just a player. He was like the absolute symbol of Chelsea's new era. You know, the Abramovich money, the relentless winning mentality. He cemented his place in the early 2000s, and then crucially, Jose Mourinho made him club captain in 2004. And Mourinho valued that grit, that loyalty above everything. His whole game was built on incredible bravery, putting his body on the line, dominating in the air, those famous last-ditch tackles. He was that classic physical leader. And by 2010, look at his trophy cabinet. It was incredible. Reflected Chelsea's rise. 3 Premier League titles, 3 FA Cups, and he captained them in that huge 2008 Champions League. Then, on the other side of this equation, you've got Rio Ferdinand, the defensive rock for Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson. A dynasty. He went to United in 2002 for what was then a world record fee for a defender, £30 million. Just staggering back then. And where Terry was all about that physicality, that grit, Rio's game was built on, well, elegance, composure. He could read the game so well, and he had that fantastic ability to bring the ball out from the back, start attacks. He was sort of the modern ball-playing defender. And by 2010, Rio had actually slightly edged Terry in Premier League titles. He had 4 by then. And crucially, he was the one lifting that Champions League trophy in Moscow in 2008, while Terry watched. And Sir Alex Ferguson summed up Ferdinand's quality perfectly. He called him the best center half in the country for many years, someone who could defend and also play football. It's kind of amazing, isn't it, that two players with such contrasting styles could even function together for England. There's even a quote we found from a Spanish paper markup back in 2006. It shows the global recognition. They said, "England has the best center-back pairing in the world. Terry's strength, Ferdinand's elegance." They specifically noted that dual threat. Together they were, without doubt, the defensive spine of that hugely hyped, but let's be honest, perpetually underachieving golden generation. Both natural leaders, powerful personalities, and they were constantly, it felt like, battling for the England captaincy. That armband meant so much. The politics around it was thick. Remember, Terry was stripped of it first in 2010, and Ferdinand got it then. But then, controversially, Fabio Capello reinstated Terry in 2011. A decision that, well, it definitely didn't sit well with Ferdinand. It undermined his position. Ferdinand even wrote about it in his autobiography, Two Sides, back in 2014. He said something like, "John was a natural leader on the pitch, and I respected that. But there was always a sense of competition between us when it came to the armband. That constant back and forth over the armband, the highest honor in English football. It was just a nonstop source of professional tension between them. Rivalry fueled from the outside, you could say. So their personal dynamic, because of all this, was always strained. Gary Neville, who played alongside both for England and against Terry for United, he summed up that pre-feud dynamic really well. He said, there was always respect between them, but not warmth. They were rivals at club level, and that rivalry spilled into England camps sometimes. But they got on with it because they had to. Okay, let's pinpoint the moment it all unraveled. The date, Sunday, October 23rd, 2011. The place, Loftus Road, the home ground of Queen's Park Rangers. Now, you need the context here. QPR had just come back up to the Premier League after years away, so this West London derby against Chelsea was always going to be feisty. The atmosphere was described by everyone there as hostile, aggressive, seriously charged. And the match itself, it was just a complete meltdown for Chelsea. The pressure just boiled over. Jose Bozingua gets a straight red card after only 33 minutes. Then, just 8 minutes later, Didier Drogba follows him down the tunnel. Chelsea down to 9 men with almost an hour still to play. Unsurprisingly, QPR went on to win 1-0, but the whole game was just littered with fouls, arguments, simmering tension. It was angry. And the absolute focal point of all that ugliness became this exchange late in the second half between John Terry, Chelsea's captain under immense pressure, and Anton Ferdinand, the QPR defender, Rio's younger brother. This clash, caught by the TV cameras right by the pitch, became the ground zero for everything that followed. The allegation, the one that led to the police investigation and the court case, was that John Terry used these specific words towards Anton Ferdinand. Terry's immediate defense was that yes, he did say those words, but he claimed he was using them sarcastically, almost quoting them back, in denial of what he thought Anton had just accused him of. We've got the quote from Terry's actual court testimony where he laid it all out. He said, "I thought Anton was accusing me of calling him a black. I was repeating it back to him. You think I called you a f?" He insisted his intention was shock, denial, not actual abuse. Anton only became aware of the alleged slur after the match. It was once TV footage, specifically. These isolated clips focusing on Terry's mouth movements started circulating widely online, and that media firestorm, amplified by Twitter and everything else, forced Terry to respond the very next day, October 24th. He tried to get ahead of it, control the narrative, by issuing an official statement. It read, "I'm disappointed people have leapt to the wrong conclusions about the context of what I was seen to be saying. I would never say such a thing. I have a lot of friends from ethnic minority backgrounds and I would never use that word." By November 1st, the Metropolitan Police had launched a formal investigation. By December, the Crown Prosecution Service, the CPS, charged John Terry with a racially aggravated public order offense under the Public Order Act 1986. So the stage was set for this highly public, pretty much unprecedented criminal trial of the current England captain. That uneasy marriage of necessity between him and Rio, officially dead. As the journalist Henry Winter wrote early on, once this level of personal trust was broken, there's simply no way back. Okay, so this brings us to the actual trial. Westminster Magistrates Court, July 2012. Terry pleaded not guilty. The charge itself was serious. Using threatening, abusive, or insulting words or behavior, aggravated by reference to race. So the prosecution laid out their case. The words themselves were insulting. The racist context was obvious, therefore it's an aggravated offense. They had the video evidence, lip-reading expert. But, and this is really crucial, we have to look closely at Anton Ferdinand's testimony. He testified under oath that he did not actually hear the slur during the match itself, not in the heat of the moment. He only became aware of what Terry had allegedly said later on, when his girlfriend at the time showed him the clips online after the game. Because they couldn't point to, immediate shock or an instant complaint from Anton on the pitch. It wasn't, "He said this to me," it was, "I later saw he said this." Subtle difference, but legally important. And the sources also revealed that under cross-examination, Anton admitted he insulted Terry first. He brought up the Wayne Bridge affair, the scandal involving Terry and his former teammate's partner. Anton admitted calling Terry a and referencing the affair, saying something like, "Shagged your teammate's missus." So it wasn't a one-way street in terms of insults, but Anton was very clear on the stand about the racial element. He testified, and this is a quote, "When someone brings your color into it, it takes it to another level, and it's very hurtful." He drew that line very clearly. Terry, meanwhile, in the dock, he just stuck rigidly to his story. the sarcastic denial defense, told the court he was shocked and angry that Anton would even think he'd use those words. Claimed he was just asking him effectively, "Are you accusing me of saying that?" Never intended as an insult, and he pointed to the fact he'd issued that public statement immediately after the game as proof that he wasn't racist and wouldn't tolerate being called one. He told the court, quite forcefully, "Being called a racist, I am not prepared to take. That's why I came out and made my statement immediately. I am not having Anton thinking that about me or anyone else. I am not a racist." And the defense hammered this point home with their key witness, Ashley Cole, Terry's Chelsea teammate, longtime England colleague.
Chelsea defender Ashley Cole says teammate John Terry should never have been taken to court over allegations of racist abuse.
Cole's testimony was designed to corroborate Terry's version of events immediately after the confrontation. Cole claimed he was present in the tunnel or dressing room area shortly after the match, and he heard Terry ask Anton directly, something like, "Did you think I called you a black cunt? Did you think I was being racist?" And Cole testified that he heard Anton Ferdinand reply along the lines of, "No," implying Anton didn't believe Terry had been racist at that point. Cole even went further, expressing his own opinion to the magistrate, saying something like, "I think we shouldn't be sitting here," basically suggesting the whole prosecution was unnecessary based on what he heard Anton say. But it wasn't just about witness credibility. The prosecution relied heavily on video footage and lip-reading analysis. But here's the thing. They called multiple lip-reading experts, and crucially, those experts didn't fully agree on what was said or the context. They offered differing interpretations based on the footage. And that led directly to the verdict. On July 13, 2012, Chief Magistrate Howard Riddle delivered his judgment. Not guilty. But Riddle was incredibly careful in how he phrased his ruling. He didn't say, "I believe John Terry." He didn't declare him innocent in the moral sense. He specifically stated that the prosecution had simply failed to meet that very high burden of proof beyond reasonable doubt. He was quoted, "It is not the job of the court to believe or disbelieve any witness. The issue is whether the Crown has proved its case beyond reasonable doubt." End quote. He explicitly said the defense case might seem improbable or unlikely, but it wasn't possible. That sliver of possibility, that ambiguity around the sarcastic repetition claim, fueled by the provocation in Cole's testimony, was enough. Quote, "The only verdict I can reach is not guilty." Right, so the reaction to the not guilty verdict was, well, mixed, wasn't it? Relief, obviously, from Terry and Chelsea, but a lot of confusion, even anger from the Ferdinand family, anti-racism groups, and parts of the public. And this is where that crucial difference between legal systems comes in. The Football Association, the FA, had been watching the whole thing unfold, and they immediately announced they were proceeding with their own separate investigation and charge. And the key reason they could do this, the reason everyone knew this might have a different outcome, is because the FA operates under a totally different standard of proof. The FA charged Terry basically with the same thing: misconduct for using abusive and/or insulting words, which included a reference to color and/or race. But the burden of proof was totally different. The FA's independent regulatory commission, the IRC, they only needed proof on the balance of probabilities. It basically means more likely than not. Like 51% certain. That's the fundamental difference you have to grasp here. If beyond reasonable doubt is like getting an A grade for certainty, balance of probabilities is just scraping a pass. The FA's job isn't criminal law. It's upholding the game's integrity, its own rules. So Terry went into the FA hearing using the exact same defense, the sarcastic denial story, the same one that got him acquitted in court just 2 months earlier. It failed spectacularly. The FA found him guilty September 27th, 2012. And they hit him hard. A 4-match ban and a massive £220,000 fine. And the FA didn't stop there. They published their written reasons a few days later. The IRC ruled that Terry's defense, his sarcastic denial story, was, and I quote, "improbable, implausible, and contrived." They also said it was not credible. The commission stated flat out, the commission is satisfied that on the balance of probabilities, the words were said as an insult. They didn't just reject his defense, they basically called it a fabrication. They said it was highly unlikely that Anton Ferdinand had even accused Terry of racism on the pitch in the first place, which, if true, makes Terry's whole, "I was just repeating a backstory," completely illogical. And to really hammer the point home, they also publicly dismissed the evidence of his key witness, Ashley Cole. They ruled Cole's testimony was inconsistent and unreliable. So think about it. Within just 3 months, John Terry goes from being legally cleared by a court of law to being found guilty and condemned by his own sports governing body. The FA had actually acted decisively, in a way, back in February 2012, even before the criminal trial. That's when they made the decision to strip Terry of the England captaincy again. They cited the upcoming court case as making his position untenable as captain. And this decision, it caused absolute chaos. It directly led to the England manager Fabio Capello resigning just 4 months before Euro 2012. Capello was furious. He felt the FA had completely undermined his authority. He made his position crystal clear, saying, "I cannot accept that my captain is chosen by the FA and not by me." And seeing that the FA, his own governing body, had found him guilty and publicly called his story not credible, despite the court acquittal, Terry made his final move regarding England. On September 23, 2012, just days after the FA hearing concluded, but before the written reasons were published, John Terry announced his immediate retirement from international football. He explicitly blamed the FA, saying their handling of the case had made his position with England untenable. His statement said, "I am today announcing my retirement from international football. I feel the FA in their hearing had made my position with the national team untenable." He felt he couldn't represent a country whose football association had, in his view, pursued him unfairly and reached the wrong conclusion. And just like that, the partnership between Terry and Ferdinand, England's supposed defensive bedrock, was over. Officially, permanently, and very, very bitterly. Okay, so Terry walks away from England, focusing on the legal not guilty verdict as his vindication. But Rio Ferdinand, his focus was entirely different. For Rio, the FA's verdict, the one that said Terry's story was not credible, that was the decisive one. He wrote, "In court, Terry got off, but the FA showed what really happened. That was enough for me. There was no going back to being England teammates after that. The line had been crossed." It confirmed everything he suspected, and it solidified his unwavering loyalty to his younger brother, Anton. In his autobiography, Two Sides, Rio is crystal clear about where his loyalties lay. He wrote, "Anton was my brother, blood. There was never any doubt where my loyalty lay. When you see your little brother dragged through the press, accused of things he didn't do, you get angry. Really angry." Rio felt that Terry and his allies kind of closed ranks, leaving Anton feeling isolated and unsupported. That sense of betrayal ran incredibly deep for Rio. And that anger, that feeling of injustice from the court case, it spelled out very publicly, didn't it? In July 2012, right after Terry was acquitted in court, Rio got involved in that huge controversy. He immediately retweeted fans who were calling Ashley Cole a chalk ice. A really derogatory term, isn't it? Used to describe a black person seen as betraying their community, acting white on the inside. In this context, for supporting Terry against another black player. Unsurprisingly, Rio was charged by the FA for that tweet. He got a hefty fine, £45,000, for improper conduct. He later tried to pass it off as just banter, saying he didn't fully grasp how offensive the term was, but the damage was done. It didn't just cement the rift with Terry, it completely destroyed his relationship with Ashley Cole too, another long-term England teammate. The resulting chaos was what former players later described as a toxic environment within the England camp. This internal conflict, these deep-seated loyalties pulling the squad in different directions. It contributed significantly, many believe, to manager Roy Hodgson's decision to controversially exclude Rio Ferdinand from the Euro 2012 squad. While the official reason given was purely footballing reasons, the widespread belief, certainly shared by Rio himself, was that the decision was actually made to ensure harmony, basically to avoid having the two Ferdinands, Terry, Cole, and their respective allies all sharing the same dressing room during a major tournament. He wrote, "I was never told the truth. They lied through their teeth. But everyone knew the real reason. They didn't want me in the same squad as John. They thought keeping us apart would solve the problem. That decision, born out of cowardice, was the beginning of the end for me with England." And the public visibility of this rift, it continued immediately when they returned to club football. September 2012, the very next QPR versus Chelsea match after the court case. All eyes were on the pre-match handshakes, and Anton Ferdinand made his feelings perfectly clear. He pointedly refused to shake hands with John Terry, and he also snubbed Ashley Cole, a very deliberate, very public statement. By March 2013, Rio was publicly stating reconciliation was impossible. This wasn't temporary. In a Times interview, he was blunt. "I can't forgive or forget what happened. It's not just about me, it's about my family, my brother. Trust is gone. Once that's gone, it simply cannot come back." And the impact, he argued, went way beyond him leaving the England setup. He believed it killed off the potential of that golden generation, all that talent that never quite delivered internationally. In Two Sides, he says, "It killed us as a team. You can't pretend things like that haven't happened. When trust is broken, there's no going back." But what's truly remarkable, I think, is just how long that animosity has lasted. These aren't wounds that healed with time. Direct confrontation stopped, but the hostility was still there, simmering away. They just meticulously avoided each other in public. Whenever Rio was working as a pundit, analyzing games, sometimes he'd make these comments, often quite veiled, but the importance of trust in teammates, or what true leadership really mean. Terry, meanwhile, he stayed pretty quiet on the whole thing publicly during those years. But that silence, that Cold War, it didn't last forever. It was absolutely shattered in 2022. The first direct public clash between them in almost 10 years. Instant, public, no filter. And he was triggered by something seemingly harmless football punditry. Rio was on BT Sport, ranking the best Premier League center backs. Puts himself at number 1, naturally. But then he put John Terry way down at number 5. Terry saw the list. Fired back almost instantly on social media. Posted an image comparing their career stats head to head. With the caption, "Opinions are great, but stats don't lie." But Rio's reply, swift, cutting, brutal. And he explicitly dragged the racism case right back into it. Proving this wasn't just about stats anymore, Rio wrote, and this is the raw exchange. The moment one has to start pushing their own records and stats, it's really time to start addressing the fragile ego. You're lucky I even put you in the top 5 after the racism case with my brother, so be thankful you made it. Terry countered instantly, trying to deflect back to the ranking. A fragile ego is putting yourself at number 1, at Rio 35. Thanks for putting me in your top 5. But then he followed that up with this fierce emotional defense regarding the case itself. Stats don't lie, not guilty. Addressed it, now what? And he finished it with a clown emoji. Total contempt for Rio bringing up the acquitted criminal case all those years later. It just showed the raw animosity was still right there, instantly accessible, hadn't faded one bit. And in the years since that spat, Terry has repeatedly claimed he tried to reconcile, but says he was firmly shut down by the Ferdinands. On a podcast in 2023, Terry said he tried to contact Anton, Rio, and their agent right after the original incident in 2011, but was, quote, shut down instantly. He also shared this story, claiming Rio intentionally blanked him, ignored him, on a beach in Dubai sometime later.
I tried to make contact with Anton that evening after the game. I tried to make contact with Rio and their agent after the game. And I basically got shut down instantly. And since then, I've tried to speak to Rio, who doesn't want to talk to me at all. I've seen him on the beach in Dubai and refused to speak to me. And there's not much more I can do. I think it could have been addressed and could have been dealt with a lot better, if I'm honest. But he went through a very difficult time, like I did. And the outcome was the outcome, and the court of law. And the other one I don't really pay much attention about, to be honest, the FA one.
Showing a deliberate, cold rejection of any private attempt to clear the air. Despite Terry claiming he tried, Rio remains firm, consistent with that loyalty to Anton. Just recently, March 2025, an interview, asked directly if they'd spoken since the Twitter row. His answer, final. No, we still do not speak. And that enduring silence, that complete lack of communication, it just perfectly summarizes the whole tragedy, doesn't it? This feud, fueled by this impossible conflict, legal acquittal versus sporting conviction, it just destroyed the trust, didn't it? The personal trust, the professional trust, everything you need to perform at the highest level together.
The fallout from that single ugly confrontation at Loftus Road back in 2011 and the impossible choices it forced on people, it continues to cast a really long shadow over that whole generation of English football. It's a story that still resonates today.